Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone. Now we are going to present about Ibn Rushd. Firstly, my name is Nur Ayuni binti Abdul Razak and I'm the first presenter.
My name is Amira Fadila binti Zakaria and I am the second presenter.
My name is Fatin Arisha binti Muhammad Fauzi and I am the third presenter.
My name is Nusaibah binti Muadai and I am fourth presenter.
My name is Putri Alifah and I am the last presenter.
Okay, now we are going to know about Ibn Rushd briefly. Ibn Rushd, which is his real name is Abu al-Walid Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Rushd. He is known as Averroes. He was born in 520 Hijrah at Cordova, or we know as Spain. Firstly, Ibn Rushd became Juruconsul at first rank. Then he applied mainly to medicine, mathematics, philosophy, and chemistry. He is one of the trio greatest Arabian thinkers of Spain, and he is so rationalist. He is best known for his commentaries on Aristotle, and he died in Marrakesh in 1198 Hijrah, where he was buried. Then, 3 months later, his body was moved to Cordova, which is his birthplace. Next, we are going to explore more about his life. His life. His life is we will divide his life into three, which is journey, family, and education. His grandfather is Qazvi al-Quzat of all Andalusia under Almoravids and well versed in jurisprudence, fifth of Maliki School of Thought and Imam of Grand Mosque of Cordova. And his family are distinguished scholars and jurists that held office of Grand Qazvi. His father also is occupied high office of Qazvi. Ibn Rushd's education in city Cordova. He studied Arabic letters, adab, jurisprudence, fiqh, kalam, medicine, and philosophy. He was taught tradition by Abu al-Qasim, Abu Marwan ibn Masarat, Abu Ja'far ibn Aziz, Abu Abdullah Marzi. He also studied philosophy and law under Abu Ja'far Harun, jurisprudence from Hafiz Abu Muhammad ibn Riz, and medicine from Ibn Bajjah. He get great scholarship in literature, law, philosophy, and medicine. Now, we are going to go deeply into his journey. In 558 Hijrah, Ibn Rushd was at Marrakesh. Renan said that Ibn Rushd occupied there in carrying out intention of Al-Muhad Abdul al-Mu'min in building of colleges. But in commentary of D. Kaulo said that he was engaged there in astronomical observation. He may meet Ibn Tufal at this time and be presented to Abu Yaqub Yusuf. Abu Yaqub Yusuf, which is Prince, questioned Ibn Rushd and he was impressed by the extent of his learning. So Abu Yaqub rewarded him some money, robe, and horse, and asking him to continue his studies and make summary of works of Aristotle. For 26 years, he put his mind to rescue Aristotle and translating his work from Greek to Arabic and then into Latin. Next, in his mid 40 age, he was appointed Qadi of Civil, but he continued trips to Cordoba and Marrakesh. Next, in 1182 Hijrah, he was appointed Physician Royal at Court of Marrakesh. Then he became Chief Qadi of Cordoba. After he terminated, he succeeded Ibn Tufal as personal personal physician to Sultan Abu Yaqub of Marrakesh. In age 68, he became victim of political intrigue. Then, Caliph need to banish him to Lucina, and his doctrine was also pronounced anathema. His philosophical works be burned, and his studies were forbidden on undefined charge of irreligion. In age 72, he returns to Marrakesh after being banned for 4 years, and Caliph repelled this edict and summoned philosophers again to his court. And lastly, Ibn Rushd died on 9 Safar 595 Hijrah or 11 December 1198. He was buried outside Gate of Tayzut, and then his body was taken to Cordova. Next, Ibn Rushd has a lot of contribution. Ibn Rushd has wrote at least 67 original works, which is included 28 works on philosophy, 20 on medicine, 8 on law, 5 on theology, and 4 on grammar. In addition to his commentaries, most of Aristotle's works and his commentary on Plato, the Republic. In medicine, Ibn Rushd is author of 20 medical treatises. He wrote commentary Sharh Urjuzat Ibn Sina. He also defends philosophers against theologians paved the way for a decline in Arabic medicine. While in philosophy, he wrote commentaries on he is the best known in wrote commentaries on most of Aristotle's works. He used Plato Republic for his commentary. In astronomy, at the age of 25, he discovered a previously unobserved star. He was also of the view that the moon was opaque and obscure and had some parts which were thicker than others. In music, he writing commentary on Aristotle De Anima, dealing perspiciously with the theory of sound. In jurisprudence, he wrote many books on questions of theology. His best-known book is Bidayat al-Mujtahid wa Nihayat al-Muqtasid, has been held by Ibn Ja'far Zahabi as best book on Maliki school of jurisprudence.
Okay, now we will move on to the criticism of Ibn Rushd. Okay, based on our findings, we find 3 criticism of Ibn Rushd, which is the first one is he wrote his commentaries to writings of Aristotle from misinterpretation by Ibn Sina. Second, Ibn Rushd was opposed to Al-Ghazali, who argued that philosophy lead to disbelief in Allah. And the third one, Ibn Rushd denied that there is only one truth, but there are many ways to access this truth. So now I will explain each one of the criticism. Okay, so for the first one, he wrote his commentaries to writings of Aristotle from misinterpretation of Ibn Sina and others. For example, Ibn Rushd has rejected Ibn Sina's doctrine of the immortality of the soul, but instead, he agreed with Aristotle that individual souls cannot exist apart from a body. Next. Okay, the second one, Ibn Rushd was opposed to Al-Ghazali, who argued that philosophy led to disbelief in Allah. So, in the Incoherence of the Philosophers, or known as Tahafut al-Falasifa, Al-Ghazali has argued that philosophy led to disbelief in Allah. So, Ibn Rushd refuted Al-Ghazali by dividing people into 3 classes and identified 3 methods to knowledge. So, the first one is Burhan, which is method of logical demonstration. So Ibn Rushd said that only the elite-like philosophers were capable of employing this approach. Second one is Jadal, which is dialectical. used by theologians who can understand dialectical arguments and draw probable inference from Quran. And the last one is khotbah, which is rhetoric and persuasion. So this method is to be used while dealing with the masses from whom philosophy would be dangerous and they must take the Quran literally. Okay, next. And the third one, Ibn Rushd denied that there is only one truth, but there are many ways to access this truth. As Ibn Rushd's teaching reached Christendom, which is a group of people under Christian set of morals and values, so he advocated a double truth, which are truth in philosophy might be entirely different from truth in religion. It implies that two propositions, one of which is contrary and contradictory to the other, can be true simultaneously. Okay, for example, immortality of human soul might be considered false in philosophy, but true in theology. So the mortality of human soul and the immortality of human soul might be both regarded as true, the first in philosophy and the second one is in theology. Okay, now we will move on to the understanding in Quran and Sunnah. So there are 5 understanding in Quran and Sunnah. The first one, Ibn Rushd denied that Ibn Sina's immortality of the soul, but he agreed to Aristotle and also agreed to Quran. So based on Quran, in agreement with the teachings of the Quran, Ibn Rushd also taught that there is a bodily resurrection. So according to Ibn Rushd, after death, we will receive new bodies that emanate from the heavenly bodies. So the second one, Ibn Rushd was the chief Qadi of Cordoba, which means that he himself is the authority of Islamic law. And the third one, Ibn Rushd used Quran injunction to observe Allah's signs as an injunction to philosophize. He believed that the methodology of the theologians was not adequate to elucidate the divine Sharia. Fourth, for Ibn Rushd, demonstrative truth cannot conflict the Quran, since Islam is ultimate truth and the nature of philosophy is the search for truth. Okay, the last one. In his work, Fasl al-Maqal, he emphasized the importance of analytical thinking in translating the Quran. So, this is contrary to conservative scholars' views of Islam, where emphasis on Quran interpretation is placed on sources such as hadith.
Okay, now we move on to economy in Holy Quran. Okay, the definition that we found in Holy Quran, there are 3. The first one is tijara, which means trade. Al-bay'u, purchase, and az-zakah means zakat. Okay, next one is the explanation. Islamic commercial legal system requires the rules of transacting finance or other economic activity in a Sharia compliant manner, for example, a manner conforming to Islamic scripture, which are Quran and Sunnah. Islamic jurisprudence, which are fiqh, has traditionally dealt with determining what is required, prohibited, encouraged, discouraged, or just permissible according to the revealed word in Quran and the religious practices established by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is Sunnah. This applied to issues like property, money, employment, taxes, loans, along with everything else. The Islamic economic concepts taken and applied by the states age of the Islamic gunpowder and various Islamic kingdoms and sultanates led to systemic changes in their economy. By the 1970s, Islamic economics was introduced as an academic discipline in a number of institutions of higher learning throughout the Muslim world and in the West. The central features of an Islamic economy are often summarized as 3. First one, the behavioral norms and moral foundation derived from the Quran and Sunnah. Second, collection of zakat and other Islamic taxes. And the third one is prohibition of interest, which is riba, charges on loans. That's all.
Alright, we are going to the Quranic verses about economy. For the first surah that mentioned about economy is from Surah Fatir, verse 29, which has it means indeed those who recite the book of Allah and establish prayer and spend in His cause out of what we have provided them, secretly and publicly, can expect a transaction that will never perish. Alright, the words that I will explain more is about tijarah. Tijarah in this ayah means transaction or trade. This is the trade that Allah offers that will never perish. Whenever we make business or trade in this dunya, we will have uncertain profit. But whenever we spend our wealth to other sincerely for the sake of Allah, it will never perish and will never get damaged. Allah will reward us in this dunya and for the hereafter. For this dunya, the for this dunya, the trader will make much effort and invest some business capital for obtain the profit. It is the same for the trade of akhirah. Whenever you want uh, to make the trade of akhirah by doing what Allah asks us to do, we must have the much effort to get the Jannah. So the differences of the trade of akhirah and the trade of the dunya, it is the profit. Whatever in this dunya in this dunya, we will have the trade that have the uncertain profit, but whenever we invest for the akhirah, it will always have the profit. Alright, let's go to the second verses. Second verse. Look, alright, for the second verse is from Surah At-Tawbah, verse 60. Means zakat expenditures are only for the poor and for the needy, and for those employed for and for bringing heart together for Islam, and for freeing captives or slaves, and for those in debt, and for the cause of Allah, and for the stranded traveler, an obligation imposed by Allah, and Allah is knowing and wise. Alright, for the tafsir, Mufassir agreed for the words of as-sadaqat in this ayah means zakat. As-sadaqat from the word sadaqah means true. Whoever giving sadaqah and zakat will justify the Islam teachings. The giving will justify the Allah's promise to the people who make infaq, sadaqah, or zakat will get rewarded by Allah. Alright. These two verse of Surah Fatir and Surah At-Tawbah highlight the words tijarah and the words zakat, which are very related to the words of economy. Alright. Next, concept of economy. For the concept of economy, generally, economic deals with maintaining an efficient balance between unlimited wants and limited resources in everyone's life, production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. But Islam was influenced the concept of economy by the Islamic teaching, which Islamic concepts of economic and economic development follows from its concepts of tazkiyah, as it addresses itself to the problem of economic aspect of human life in all its dimensions. Tazkiyah is concerned with growth towards perfection through purification of attitudes and relationships. The result of tazkiyah is falah, prosperity in this world and the hereafter. From from the research of Ahmad 1994-20. Alright, next, the history of Islamic economy. For the conclusion of history of Islamic economy, already mentioned shortly by Arisha, but I will explain further about the history. Alright, the Islamic economy originated in the middle of the 20th century. For the pre-formation of Islamic economy, which means whenever the Islamic economy is not formed yet, Muslim intellectuals argued the Islamic legitimacy or principle of interest rate which Western banks charge. Muslim intellectuals focus on the relationship between this implication of riba and the function of interest in the Western banking operations and question whether transactions with interest were forbidden due to the riba factor. Alright, the main controversy for the argument is to what extent interest is regarded as riba. There are two resolutions to this question among Muslim intellectuals. Some of the scholars define the riba as a usurious rate of interest and allow any normal rate of interest. But some of the other scholars define the riba or assume that any rate of interest as riba. Therefore, they consider any transactions involving interest to be impermissible in the light of Islam. So this section or this will call as interest riba school. Next. At the initial stage, Islamic economics was not considered as an academic discipline as is now recognized, but as an independent academic discipline. The emergence of the commercial practice of Islamic finance in the 1970s gave strength to the arguments about Islamic economics. Therefore, it resulted in a division of discipline into two groups, which is the aspiration-oriented school and the reality-oriented school. Alright.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, so now we're going to proceed this presentation on the last subtopic, which is the Ibn Rushdi's opinion on economy. Okay, so throughout his noble life, Ibn Rushdi, or in Western we call him as Averroes, had studied under Aristotle and the Greek and Arabic commentators on various subjects such as philosophy, law, theology, and many more. One of the subjects that Ibn Rushdi had a serious study on is economics. And he commented and did countless and relevant research on economics. And most of his interpretations are based on the Quran and Hadith, which is the saying of Prophet. Okay. So, in his view of economics, Ibn Rushdi's fundamental and basic principle is whether all the economic topics that we're going to discuss later, such as sale, purchase, loan, is justified or permissible or not. So, Ibn Rushdi said that any economic act must be evaluated as being allowed, forbidden, authorized or prohibited, licit or illicit, legal or illegal, valid or invalid, acceptable or unacceptable, or good or bad. So the main objective or opinion of Ibn Rushdi in economic is it must be lawful or permissible. So in Arabic, this concept of admissible, lawful, authorized or licit is known as jaiz, which is derived from the lingual root jaza. Okay, so in order to know whether an economic act is jaiz or not, Ibn Rushdi had put on some criteria or characteristics to determine whether the Economic Act is permissible or not. Those two criteria are majhala and gharar. Okay, so he highlighted two vital criteria which are majhala and gharar. So the first one is majhala, which means uncertainty, from the root of jahala, which means to ignore or to be unaware of. And uncertainty basically means a situation in which something is not known. Okay. So gharar is the second criteria that is reviewed from the root gharra, which means chance, luck or risk. Okay. And al-gharar here means random or illusory contract. So basically random just means happening, done or chosen by chance rather than according to plan, while illusory contract or sale means a contract between two parties with one party promising a consideration that is insubstantial, no obligations are imposed. In simpler words, basically it's mean that the person making the promise in the contract is under no obligation to fulfill the promise. Okay. So what does these two criteria, majhala and gharar, imply on economy? So when an economic act is stained by these elements or by one of them, majhala or gharar, its legality is partly or totally compromised. Okay. So next, okay, so in this presentation, we're going to discuss on specific economic issues such as sale and also partnership. Okay. Okay, so the first issue in sale is about the interest. The guideline for it can be referred to the Prophet himself as he was a tradesman, and also from the second surah of Quran, verse 275, which described about the prohibition of interest. Okay, so the meaning of the verse 275 is those who swallow usury or riba will not rise on the day of resurrection except as someone driven mad by Satan's touch. That is because they say sale is like usury, but Allah has permitted sale and has forbidden usury. So usury, or we call it as riba or interest, is the action or practice of lending money at unreasonably high rates of interest. So by the meaning itself, we can know that usury constitutes an unlawful gain. So that's why the doctors or the scholar decide interest is not permissible or non-jaiz. Yeah. Okay, so in a transaction, when a visible object is exchanged for an invisible object, or when two invisible subjects are exchanged with one another, Ibn Rushdi said this kind of transaction can actually lead to a disagreement in the legality of the sale. This is because the things that are sold must be in two conditions. The first one is present or hadir and visible. But if the items are given adequate and precise information, then it will be legal. The legality of the sale is a must to ensure the preservation of interest of both parties. The ample and accurate information of the items is very important to prevent one or both parties from suffering any disbenefit. But some scholars still reject the validity of the sale of the items that are not exist, such as word, whatever the precision is. Next, okay, concerning the non-cash transaction, the scholars actually prohibit exchanges for which there is not immediate or delay on both sides, which means the payment and the property transfer are actually forward contracts. Okay, the delay, nasi'ah, can cause great suspicion and questioning among the doctors. There is hadith saying that there is no riba except in delay or nasi'ah. Okay, delay in a sale can generate uncertainty in the exchanges that can lead to any danger or risk in the sale. So because of this kind of transaction has uncertainty or has any risk or danger in it, so the doctors decide to consider this transaction as non-jaiz. Okay, time alone, in example, the delay should not generate a gain without making any effort, producing any labor in return. But as God has permitted the sale, the transformation of a loan situation into a sale situation could permit to circumvent or to overcome the prohibition and to avoid that sin of riba. So it can only be achieved through the substitution of a forward sale or purchase to a simple money loan, which we call it as, the first one is mukhatara and the second one is iqala. Okay, So the mukhatara is when the borrower sells a commodity, for instance a slave, to the lender for cash, and he purchases forward immediately at a higher price, and the difference between prices constitute the disguised interest of the transaction. The borrower will buy again effectively the object of the exchange and becomes again the owner of it. And at the maturity date of the contract, he must compensate the lender in money. So if I'm not mistaken, what I understand from mukhatara is like pajak gadai. You exchange something for cash, such as slave or jewelry. And after that, at the maturity date of contract, you will pay back the cash that you borrow at higher price and you will get back the things that you exchanged earlier. Okay, so that is mukhatara. So next is the ikala. So ikala basically means abolition, rescission and abrogation. So when a person who regrets selling an object or such as example slave will purchase for it again for higher price than the sale price. Okay, the analogy is like this. After I graduated, I think I don't need the Grey's Anatomy textbook, so I give it to my junior. I sell it to my junior maybe at for RM20. But then after that, I realized that I actually need that book for my whole life, so I want to buy that book again from my junior. But I need to buy it at higher price than the previous one, maybe for RM30 ringgit or more. Okay, so the restoration of an object at a different price than the one it was previously sold for is considered as a new transaction, which will abolish or repels the former one. Okay, so the next one we will discuss about the partnership. Okay, so partnership is a revocable contract and not a necessary or binding one. Each of the partners can withdraw from the partnership whenever he likes. This is based on what Ibn Rushdi said. So in this partnership issue, we are dealing with the question of contract, or we know it in Arabic as akad. And the doctors and Ibn Rushdi are attentive to the symmetry of the conditions in which both partners exercise their will in the contract. And the attention is drawn toward the inequality concerning the conditions in which will is exercised and thus the conditions of liberty between contractors. Liberty, in other words, means freedom. Okay, condition of liberty between contractors can be explained when the lender is free, since his survival is not at risk in the operation, but the borrower is in the position of forced dependence from the lender. He actually urgently need to borrow the money for survival reasons. So in this situation, basically, the lender is free, but the borrower is not, as the borrower is depend on the lender. Okay. So the next one, okay, the great difference in these bargaining powers actually that justify the prohibition of riba in Islam. And it is also being evaluated based on the two criteria, majhala and gharar. And any contract in partnership that has these two or one criteria is not permitted, or we call it as non-jaiz. Okay, there are two major concepts of in partnership, which are qirat and sharika, which will be discussed later. Okay, so the first one is qirat. Okay, qirat means the giving of wealth by one person to another, saying that he may trade with it in return for a defined ratio of the profit that the worker earns. That is a part that is agreed upon by both as a third, fourth, or half. So this contract is focusing on the partnership between two sides. The first one is the capital, which means the financial wealth, especially that used to start or maintain a business. Basically, what I understand, capital is like modal to start any business. Labor in Arabic word is amal, which means to act, to do, to achieve, to make, or to operate. Okay. So in any case of this, it must be remembered to preserve the interest for both sides. Any uncertainty in qirat can actually lead to majhala and gharar, and thus making this kind of partnership to be recognized as non-jaiz, which is not permissible by the doctors or the scholars. Okay. So so the last one is the second concept. The last one is the sharika. Okay, this concept actually has four categories. The first one is syarikat al-inan. The second one is syarikat al-abdan. The third one is syarikat al-mufawadah. And the last one is syarikat al-wujuh. Okay, syarikat al-inan is where both parties bring the capital. The share of profit does not create any problem when each partner brings the same amount of capital to the enterprise. But the juries have this agreement whether the profit can be contributed equally if both parties do not contribute the same value of capital. Some doctors recognize it as jaiz, but some not. Okay. Next, Syarikat Al-Abdan is where there is association of bodies in the contract, or in simpler word, we call it as labor. And in general, most of the juries, like Malikites and Hanafites, consider it as jaiz, but some, like Shafi'ites, are opposed to this kind of syarikat. But okay, this is because Shafi'i thinks that partnership is specific to wealth and not to work, as it is variable and it actually can lead to gharar because the work of each is not known by their partner. Okay, so next, okay, the third one is Syarikat Al-Mufawada, is the association by delegation. Okay, for these juries, Malik and Abu Hanifa, this kind of partnership is allowed, jaiz, but for Shafi'i, syarikat is for mixing of wealth while the profits are an outcome. It is prohibited for the outcome to be common except joining of the source. And because of this reason, Shafi'i thinks that this kind of syarikat is not permissible, non-jaiz. Okay, the last one is Syarikat Al-Wujuh, which means the partnership of credit. Okay, according to Malik and Al-Shafi'i, this partnership is not permitted as there is presence of qarar because there is no particular skill or work are involved, and partnership should be based on work and wealth. But Abu Hanifa recognized it as jaiz, as he said that credit is also kind of work. Okay. Okay, so we have come to the last slide, and as conclusion, in economy, attention should be paid to ensuring the preservation of the interests of both parties in a contractual relationship. What is just for scholastic doctors and Ibn Rushdi is the other's good. What is important in economy is the other's good. And in ancient Greek, they call it as justice. Okay, if you read Ibn Rushdi's book about economy, you actually realize that the concern in the book is not to elaborate a general theory of the economic activity, but actually to examine the lawfulness, the ethicity of specific case. That's why in their book, it led them to focus their attention on exchange relations rather than on modes of production. Okay, so that's all from us, a group Ibn Rushdi. Thank you.